In this video, I'm going to be teaching how to draft the basic bodice block. So if you're interested in it, kindly watch till the end. These are the items I'll be needing or I'll be using for the tutorials. One, a jotter to record the measurements, and then I'm going to be needing a tape measure, a scissors, brown paper, ruler, armhole curve, and then a marker or pencil to work. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is to fold my brown paper into two. I'm going to be cutting both front and back together. From that upper part of the brown paper, mark 1 inch down. This is going to serve as a borderline. So after marking the 1 inch down, I'm going to be connecting the point with my marker to get a straight line. Note that line becomes our shoulder line. So I'm going to be writing X on it. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to measure or mark my shoulder to waist measurement, which is 16 inches. So like I said, that line is the shoulder line. So from that point, I'm going to be marking 16 inches down. 16 inches down, and then connect with my ruler to get a straight line. The next thing I'm going to be doing now is to measure or mark my waist to hip measurements. So from the waist to the hip, I had 9 inches. So from the waist, I'm going to be marking 9 inches down. That is for the waist to hip measurement. Note the bodice block, the basic bodice block ends on the hip. So that is it. Now I'm going to be connecting it to get a straight line as well. At this point, I have my shoulder line, my waist, and then my hip line. Next, I'm going to be marking 1 inch in at the center front. Since I'm going to be cutting both front and back together, I need that 1 inch for the zip extension. After marking the 1 inch, I'm going to be labeling this front. So that part is going to be the center front. That is the center of the front. Next, I'm going to be marking my shoulder to bust measurement. Shoulder to bust. So you know from the shoulder, you are marking the shoulder to bust, which is 9 inches. Yes. So after marking the 9 inches, I'm going to connect it with my ruler to get a straight line. Next, I'm going to be dividing my bust by 4, my waist by 4, and then my hip by 4. All those round body measurements, I'm going to divide it by 4. So that is it. The first thing I'm going to be doing is to mark my bust measurement. So when I divided my bust by 4, I had 8.75. So I'm going to mark in that 8.75 over there. And then the waist, and you divide by 4, whatever you get, you mark it over there. I have 7.25 over there. And then the hip, I have 10.25. So I'm going to be marking that as well. So I've marked my bust, waist, and hip measurement. Note, I started marking behind that line. That 1 inch I marked in is not part of the measurement. It's going to be for the zip extension. So now I'm going to be connecting from that point to that point. That is the bust to waist, and then from the waist to the hip. Next, I'm going to be marking my shoulder measurement. The shoulder is 14. For the shoulder, you are going to divide it by 2. So 14 divided by 2, I have 7 inches. So I'm going to be marking 7 inches over there. And then on the bust line, I'm going to be marking that same 7 inches over there. So 7 at the shoulder and then 7 at the bust line as well. I'm going to be joining those 2 points together to get a straight line like this. Next, I'm going to be marking 3 inches in from the center front and then 3 inches down. This is going to serve as the neckline. Note 3 inches on both lines is standard. So I can either use the curve to connect it together like this, or I can make a square before connecting. So whatever works for you, you go ahead and then do it. So I'm going to be marking that same 3 inches down. Then I'm going to be drawing a square or a box over there. This will enable or guide me to be able to draw in the neckline. So just place the armhole curve there and then you draw in the shape. Next, from that point, I'm going to be dropping the shoulder by 1 inch. That is for the shoulder slant. So after dropping, I'm going to be connecting from that point to the slant. Next, I'm going to be dividing that line into 2. So I have 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I'm going to be marking 4 at that point. Yeah. So after marking the 4 at the middle or the center, I'm going to be coming in by 1/2 inch. So after marking the 1/2 inch, I'm going to be connecting it from that point to the edge or to the side seam with my armhole curve or my French curve. So this is what I have. Next thing I'm going to be doing from this point is to mark my nipple to nipple or bust to bust measurements. So I had 7 when I measured. So for the nipple to nipple or bust to bust, you are going to divide it by 2. So dividing 7 by 2, I have 3.5. So I'm going to be marking 3.5 in from the center front in. Note I'm marking on the bust, waist, and then hip line. Then I'm going to make it into a straight line like this. So the size of the waist fitting dart is 1 inch. That is, I'm going to be placing 1/2 inch on both sides so that when I measure both sides, I'm going to be getting 1 inch in total. So 1/2 inch on both sides. And then for the front, the dart starts 1 inch below the bust line. The dart starts 1 inch below the bust line. And then it ends 2 inches above the hip line. 2 inches above the hip line. So now I'm going to be connecting from that point to that point to that point in that order. So just like this. I'll be doing the same thing at the other side as well. Next, I'm going to be placing the dart allowance on the side. That's 1 inch dart allowance. I'm going to be placing it at the side because if you don't place it there and then you sew, you are going to lose 1 inch. That is why I'm placing it over there. So at this point, I'm going to be marking 1 inch in for the neck of the back. So the width is 3 inches and then the depth is just 1 inch. So this is it for the back. I'll be explaining that later in the video, but at this point I'm going to trace it out onto the brown paper at the lower part or under that to get the back. So I'm going to be using my tracing wheel to do the tracing, and I'm going to be tracing only the back neckline, the armhole, and then the nipple to nipple measurements, and then the side of the pattern. So after tracing out, I'll explain everything to you so you don't worry. I'm only tracing the back onto the brown paper under. So just trace the back. So like I said, the neckline, the armhole, and then the dart intake. So I've traced it onto the brown paper, but then since it's a tracing wheel, it's not going to be clear, so I'm using my marker to draw in the lines, and then I'll explain everything to you after that. So after tracing, this is what I have. I'm going to be putting in my waist fitting darts. I've already traced the allowance on the side, so I'm inserting the darts in. Like I said, the back dart starts at the bust line and then ends 2 inches above the hip line. So I just marked that 2 inches above the hip line, and then I'm connecting the points together to get my waist fitting dart. So that's my bust line, my waist, and then hip line as well. Next, I'm going to open it up and then label the back as well before cutting out. So I'm going to be writing center back on the back part of the bodice and then cut out. So after cutting out, I'm labeling the back and then that is the front. I'll explain the difference between the front and then back later. So at this point, I'm cutting out the neckline for the front. Then I did same for the back as well, and then I'm tracing out all the excess brown paper from it. So this is the front. It doesn't need the center front line, so you either fold it in or you cut out. Unless you are fixing a zipper in front, you don't need the center or the zip extension at the front. So the difference is the neckline for the back and then front, and then the armhole. You can see the front of the armhole. The front part of the armhole is curvier than the back. And then also the dart. The front dart starts 1 inch below the bust point, then ends 2 inches above the hip line. But then for the back, it starts exactly at the bust line. So this is all for the basic bodice block. I hope you enjoyed these tutorials. Don't forget to like, comment, and share my videos.